Alright guys, so now what we want to do is implement Mongoose. We want to connect to our MLab dev database and we want to create a user model. So let's go ahead and do that. Let's run our application so we can run it with NodeMon locally. And we're gonna we'll close this stuff for now. We're gonna go into app.js. We've already brought in Mongoose, but we haven't connected yet. So we're going to connect the same way that we did in the last project. Let's go let's see, we'll go right above where we initialize the app. And let's say mongoose connect. Okay, so we'll say mongoose.connect. We're going to pass in here. Now remember, we have our Mongo URI inside the keys file, which we haven't brought in yet. So let's go ahead and bring that keys file in. So I'll go right here. I'll say load keys. And we'll say const keys equals require. Okay, and the path for that is going to be ./config/keys. And then in here we can simply just put keys.mongo URI. Alright, so we're going to connect to it. Now, as I said in the last project, we want to put in a second parameter of an object, and we want to say use Mongo client and set that to true. Otherwise, we're going to get some kind of weird deprecated error. Alright, and then that's going to give us a promise back. So we're going to say, let's go on the next line and say .then. And in here, we'll just pass in an arrow function, and we'll just console.log. And we'll just say MongoDB connected. Okay, and then if there's an error, we'll do a .catch, and that'll have an error, and we'll say console.log. Oops, console.log error. Okay, now remember the weird promise warning that it gives us. In order to get rid of that, we're going to have to put in a line of code here. We're going to map global promises by saying mongoose.promise is equal to global.promise. All right, so let's save that. Let's see, we're getting an error. Promise.es6 is not a constructor. Let's see, why is that? Oh, this should be an uppercase P. Okay, so now everything's good. We get MongoDB connected. All right, so we're now connected to our MLab Mongo database. So now let's create our user model. So we're going to go to our application root, and we're going to create a new folder called models and create a new file called user.js. All right, and you guys should know the deal by now. We're going to bring in Mongoose. Set that to require Mongoose. Okay, we also want to create a variable called schema. Set that to mongoose.schema. Then we want to create our schema by creating a variable called user schema. Set that equal to new schema. And that's going to take in an object with our fields. Now we're going to have a field called Google ID. All right, remember that console log that had all the profile stuff? That's the stuff we're going to be putting into these fields. Okay, so this is going to be a string. So we'll say type string. We are going to set this to required. Say true. Now, if you were using other authentication strategies like say Facebook as well or Twitter, you probably wouldn't make this required. Oh, that is not spelled right. You should probably not make this required because they might not be signing up with Google, but where Google is the only authentication we're using, we're going to make it required. All right, so let's also put in the email because we know we can get that from Google. We requested that. That's going to be type string and that's going to be required as well. So we got Google ID, email. Now we also want to get the first name and last name. So let's say first name, and we'll say type string. I'm not going to say that that's going to be required, or the last name. All right, and then the last thing I want to get is the image, and that's going to be type string, like that. All right. And then the last thing we want to do is we want to go down to the very bottom. Let's say create collection and add schema. So we'll say mongoose.model. Pass in the name of the collection, which will be users, and pass in our user schema. And that's it. Let's save. And now we have a user model. So now that we have a user model, in the next video, we're going to go into our Passport config, and we're going to take this profile information that we get when the user logs in, or when they try to authenticate, and we're going to put that into the user, into the collection, into the user's collection. All right, so I will see you in the next lecture.